Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Spirit Ninja's Spiritual AF podcast.
Welcome. Today we had an awesome conversation yet again, because it's what we do on this show. It's exciting.
Yeah, we talked to Sydney Campos.
That's right. And she is
an intuitive advisor, author, speaker, coach.
She does it all.
She does it all.
Yeah, definitely. I really got a lot out of this conversation, like talking about being an empath and what that means and absorbing people's energy as you walk around. Like there's definitely certain moments where Christmas at the mall.
Oh God. Yeah.
Forget about it. I can't stand that space.
Yeah.
So what the heck is it?
Well, Sydney, she shares some tips on how to manage that.
Yes, big time. So for anybody that's an empath or feels like you're picking up other people's energies or emotions or traumas or anything, this is absolutely an episode you have to hear. So stay tuned after the break.
Yeah, we also talk about Akashic Records.
Ooh, good one as well.
Yeah, so
this is a juicy episode.
Yeah,
I liked it.
Yeah, it was really, really awesome. So yeah, like Bart said, you have to stay tuned after the little jingle and listen to our chat with Sydney.
Hey, you just turned into the Spirit Ninja's Spiritual as podcast. The show that aims to inspire, uplift, and questions everything. And now your hosts, Bart Rigel and Holly Emerson.
All right. Well, Sydney, thank you so much for joining us here on our podcast. This is exciting. We wanted to have you on for a little while here. And here you are. It's awesome.
Thank you. It's great to be here with you guys. I'm looking forward to our awesome convo.
Yeah, us too. So I guess before we get started, or as we get started, if you could, give us a quick bio on yourself, like where did you come from? How did you end up, becoming an intuitive advisor and author and speaker?
Like, holy crap, you got a story, girl.
Yeah, we know your story, but share it with our audience.
Sure. Yeah, it's a long story and it's a fun one. I guess today what feels most present to share on that end is just, I came, certainly have felt my entire life that I'm from a different planet.
Yep.
I came from somewhere else, came to Earth, and with the intention, I think as a soul, to really awaken consciousness and to help people really fall into love with themselves and each other. And I say again and again, my mission through everything that I create, whether it's coaching, retreats, books, live streams, my mission is to help people remember who they are and really remember that, this place, this planet that we're on is heaven on earth, paradise. It's the most beautiful place in the entire universe, and that we chose to be here. And let's live our most extraordinary, powerful, creative, inspired lives, right? So that's really like my why. And I didn't always feel that way. I didn't always, feel so clear in owning that. As you could imagine, and I'm sure many people resonate with this, when I was really young, I was like a super intuitive, psychic, magical child. And as all of us are, I believe, and then, kind of just growing up, learned that it wasn't fully safe to tell the truth in the like really radical way. I would always call adults out and just tell them exactly what I thought. And and I just learned to kind of mute my gifts and really mute my sensitivity and not listen to my body or my intuition, and which for me catalyzed a lot of, kind of darker experiences just in kind of losing myself. I had about a 10-year period of my life, really young, 14 to 24, when I was really engaged in a lot of different addictive behaviors and just really didn't take care of myself, but I'm really grateful for having learned so many important lessons, like really hard lessons, it feels like, early on in my life, so that I could just wake up and really understand, my mission and fully receive that. And so when I was 24, I got sober from, drugs and alcohol and a bunch of other things I had been to take care of myself, started to meditate, started to get really into healing and learning about different energy healing tools, Akashic Records, Reiki, yoga, meditation, like all sorts of different practices, and all the meanwhile working full-time in advertising and marketing in New York City. And just, along that path, it was like a, I'd say 5-year path or so before I launched my own company, my own business. But that 5-year path of just like daily practice of like bettering myself and taking care of myself, healing, doing really rigorous work to heal some of these wounds that had catalyzed, addiction and all sorts of different kind of like dark behaviors, and just getting to know myself. And suddenly, through that process, the voice within me was just getting louder and louder saying, it's time to work, time to get to work, time to do your mission. Get out there. You're not meant to work in a full-time job doing advertising, although I'm really good at that, because I feel like a lot of intuitive people are like natural marketers because we just know how to communicate in ways that people understand, and we can, kind of tap into trends. And so that was really fun, but not my mission. And so about 2 years ago, I just really listened to that whisper of my intuition, of my soul, that got to be so loud. That was just like, we don't. And it was really powerful because it's like, my mind and my ego wanted to know this full plan of what was my business going to look like and how is it going to all be. And yeah, and I just took one step at a time, and I moved through these different challenges of like fear and just really, leaned really heavily into trust of like, I know that I'm supposed to be doing something else. So what did that look like? That looked like, as I was in my full-time job, starting my health coaching certification, which really empowered me with this more tangible kind of, path of like, I can do this. I can like be in this community and be around other people that are coaching. I know what that feels like, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to support myself and, having the tools and the platform to launch this. And that, eventually kind of, translated into also doing strategic consulting with brands and startups, and some of which I still do. I'm still a marketing advisor for an amazing startup that I love with amazing people. And, long story short, there's so many different things that I could say to that end. I know a lot of people like to listen to like, what was the jump off point from your full-time job into entrepreneurship, and how do you do that? And the continuation of that, even in entrepreneurship, to lean into the discomfort and the trust and the unknowing. And, but, over the last year, I've really had the most transformative year of my life. And 2017, I spent most of the year in Bali, which I thought I was just going to go visit there for like a month. And I ended up staying for almost 8 months and just having the most incredible time, really opening up my psychic intuitive abilities in a very deep way, getting even more clear on my mission and my purpose, and having some really miraculous synchronicities occur, such as, receiving a book deal from a major publisher via a Facebook message, which is what happens when you're just like, in alignment. I had written some articles and, kind of had this intuition to write a little bit of an ebook, but I was just going to self-publish on Amazon. And then the universe is like, no, you're going to have a major book deal, and this is going to be big, and you're going to write a whole book. That happened last May, and so I just finished writing that book, and it's going to be out May 1st, which is like so proud of that.
Amazing.
Good for you.
Yeah, so there's like, oh my gosh, there's so much that wants to come through today. I have like the whole story. That's I would say the gist of it.
Yeah, in a nutshell.
That's amazing.
That is really exciting. Well, first off, congratulations on the book deal. That's pretty exciting. And
we'll be sure to link your book in the show notes. So when it comes out, people can pre-order.
So let's talk about your book. What is your book about? What can people find out in your book and learn? And
Totally. Yeah, my book is The Empath Experience, What to Do When You Feel Everything. And it's really about how to live a super empowered, loving, fulfilling, present life. And, I talk about, the book it was written for me when I first got sober, and I was like learning how to deal with emotions and feeling my feelings and my intuition coming back online after muting my sensitivity for so long, and learning what an empath is. I had never heard that word before, right? And I think I'm seeing it referenced more nowadays, which is really nice. Sure. But at the time I found out about it like 6 or 7 years ago, and it was like, oh my God, there's a word to describe how I felt my entire life. I always thought something was wrong with me. I always thought like, why does everybody else understand how to kind of live in this way that feels like they kind of just know what to do, and I don't know what to do. Like, why is this so confusing? Sure. And for those people that don't know, like an empath is somebody that is really hypersensitive to feeling either other people's. There's different types of empaths also, which I talk about in my book. There's people that can be really sensitive to feeling the emotions and even like the physical feelings, like physical sensations of other people. As someone around you is like feeling really upset about something, and you can actually feel as an empath. And I did this for a long time unconsciously, right? So I was actually like feeling other people's emotions, but not knowing that's what was happening. And I would be very confused, feeling like these states of sadness or grief or anxiety, and feeling like, why am I feeling this way? My life is not, there's nothing going on in my life to explain why I could feel this way. And it was really very confusing. And but what I've learned, in hindsight, as I started to really take care of myself, was that, wow, I'm so open, and I can feel other people's pain. And a part of me, in fact, had been conditioned to like really be a support for a lot of people that I would attract unconsciously, who would want to seek out my support, which oftentimes just meant being in my space, being in my physical presence, being in my field. That there was something in my openness that, I was able to transmute. It almost felt like transmuting people's, grief, disappointment, anxiety, whatever it was, that just simply being in this space with me would help them to heal, would help them feel more, grounded in themselves, perhaps. And yeah, so, but doing that unconsciously, that's where we hear people talk about, taking on other people's stuff, and
For sure.
definitely, yeah. So that was a big part of my path. And I feel like a lot of people on this, awakening consciousness journey on the planet are like waking up to their own sensitivity, whatever that may, look like for them. It may mean that they're sensitive to other people's emotions. It may feel like they're feeling more sensitive to, the planetary shifts of the collective conscious. Oh my God, like what's going on here? Like feeling the violence or the trauma or the like separation on the planet, and feeling this deep desire to serve, the deep desire to help heal, a deep desire to help transform. That might be part of someone's empath kind of activation. There's also people that feel really deeply connected to animals, and almost like they can understand how animals are feeling, can feel the suffering of animals, can feel, and also, plants, all living beings. But some people have different sensitivities. We all express our intuition and our kind of energetic signature differently. So it's really, and it's fun. It's fun to talk about this stuff, right? Because, as much as I wrote a book and can be an expert and, maybe considered an expert in helping people to align to their purpose and activate their intuition and feel really clear in their discernment, create boundaries so they feel really, just feel really grounded in themselves. There's still so many questions I have. Like, I don't, the more I learn, it's like the less that I know.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
It's such a journey.
that whole thing.
No kidding.
Totally.
Yeah.
The book, like, are all people, and I really feel like all human beings are empaths. I feel like all human beings are empaths, but certain people are maybe more sensitive to this awareness, right? Because we're all in a different trajectory in our journey. And so, the book that I wrote is for all human beings, essentially, but is specifically, I think, speaking to people that are really ready to get like fully empowered in their gifts and to really serve, at a higher level, to really get clear on, why am I here? Like, I have these superpowers, and what am I here to do with them? So it's just, I have more questions. So the more people I can just be in dialogue with about, their experience and learn from other people's experiences. It's like, I love being in that space.
Yeah.
So-
Totally.
I've got a question. Like, that must be pretty confusing when you're walking around and you're absorbing people's energies and you feel other people's feelings. Like, how do you discern whether that's yourself or someone else? Like, is it a little subtly different, or can you explain that?
That's a really great question. Yeah. Yeah, and I don't feel like I experience that anymore because I've, gotten so clear on my own energy. So, for people that are maybe tuning in and they're like, oh my God, I feel that way. I feel exhausted, or I feel drained, or I feel like wiped out after interacting with certain people or being in certain spaces. Like, what's going on, and what is an empath? I feel like that's me. Totally get that. That's how I felt when I first learned this. I was in a Reiki session. I'll give you a little bit of backstory. So like, it was right after I got sober and I was having all these emotions come back online. I was starting to get, more clear on my feelings and my intuition. And as I mentioned, it was like, I was feeling anxiety and fear, like a really intense anxiety. And I was confused because I'm like, my life is amazing. My life had never been better. I had everything like it was a dream. And yet I felt this anxiety, and it really felt like is this mine, you know? And I had just shared, this is a great synchronicity. I was kind of sharing that experience with a few friends, and two people unrelated to each other, like sent me to the same woman who does Reiki and intuitive coaching. And it's just really funny. I'm like, okay, I guess I need to go see this
Yeah,
woman.
no kidding. Awesome.
I went to go see her for a Reiki session, which I had never had before at that point. And she told me after after the session, Reiki is like an amazing energy healing for anybody that doesn't know. It just channels source energy through you to clear anything that's just not meant to be in your system, and is really just this like transmission of unconditional love that helps expedite your body's natural ability to heal. So it's just activating your own natural system, you know, to come into balance. And, you know, after my first session, I just felt I felt so much better. I couldn't even believe it. I was like, whoa, I feel clear. This is like, what is going on? Like, this is so profound. And my healer, who ended up being my first coach actually after that, was like, you're an empath. You are a sponge for other people's emotions. You've been likely going into environments that are really toxic for you to be in. You're probably attracting people that are really a lot of issues onto you, and you're unconsciously taking that on to help them, to heal them, to help them feel better. And, you know, that information blew me away. I was like, oh my God, what do we do? You know, naturally I asked your same question. So what do I do? That's a lot.
Exactly.
I've been living this way my whole life. What do I do now? And the answer to that was, first and foremost, awareness. Like, yes, that makes sense. Just certain people in my life that I have that experience of feeling drained or feeling like it's not fully reciprocal. Like I'm giving a lot to these people in terms of my attention and care, maybe with an underlying desire to save them or to help them in some way. And it's not reciprocated. I'm not taking care of myself in the way that I need. Which was something that kind of, you know, developed over the years, was learning more about, you know, my own conditioning and working more with my inner child, things like that, to learn like the ways in which I decided that, you know, my value as a person was contingent upon, you know, how I'm taking care of everybody around me. And I really had learned at a young age that, you know, when other people are happy, and if I can help them to feel happy and help them to feel good, then, only then, after everyone else is taken care of, then maybe I can feel good too. Because I'm learning to kind of mirror what I'm feeling in everyone else. And you know, when everyone else is happy, then I can be happy, instead of the opposite, you know, way around,
For sure.
which is like, I get to come first. I get to be happy. I have to take care of myself. And then from this place of overflow, I can then support the right people that I'm meant to support, that I really resonate with. There's not this feeling of drain or totally giving myself away. And but I would say, even, you know, before all of that this is like kind of over years, right? Learning. And very early on in the beginning, that it seems so simple, but the most revolutionary thing I did to support myself, and to your point, to your question of like, I was literally walking around like this sponge, unconscious of the ways in which I was like, you know, helping people without even intending to like help them or absorb things and transmute things for them. The best thing that I did was just like radically commit to self-care. And and really start getting clear on, you know, where are the ways in which I can love myself more? Because there's a lot of self-hatred actually that I had accumulated through addiction, through just the ways that I had no regard for myself. It was really like I was in this self-abandonment cycle for a long time, and really living thought other people expected of me, what I thought looked good to the world, what I thought would make other people happy, and just really not listening to my truth. And so, you know, to heal that is like a massive order. And taking care of myself with really basic, literally like such basic self-care, like, you know, and really, I talk about this in my book, starting to consciously spend time and create time in my calendar to like spend time alone, be alone with myself. Ask myself, what do you want to do right now? What would be inspiring? What do you need? Really creating space to practice that, because I really needed to strengthen the relationship with myself, and to kind of detach from this, you know, what had become more familiar was to like tune into what's going on with everyone else, to decide how I wanted to feel and decide what I wanted to do. You know, so I really had to do this reprogramming of, you know, wait, what do I want? What do I desire? What do I feel? And just doing those practices. It was terrifying at first. I didn't like to be alone. I really was faced with like, I don't know if I really like myself. I don't know if I like being with myself. Um, but I got to choose to go through that. And I hired a coach, which is really supportive. And I had support in like recalibrating my whole health protocol and eating differently, taking care of my body, doing like a cleanse regimen was really important for getting clear on my emotions and having my body operate optimally. And there's so much. I mean, I talk about so many other things in the book. Like I care so much about making, my past years of experience like so practical and so tangible for people to just like take exercises for their daily life to start, feeling the benefit of creating boundaries and creating clearer discernment and ultimately, I even talk about this in my book, like, this notion of energy vampires, which maybe people have heard about. And this notion of like, yeah, there's people that at an unconscious level, I don't believe people are consciously aware of this most often, but unconsciously it's like, what are the ways in which I'm unconsciously available to like take care of anybody else? And then obviously that's going to be a magnet for anybody that's like seeking to have their unmet needs, right, met by someone external. And so I talk a lot about that in the book, like this notion of energy vampires and like how to protect yourself from that. But at the end of the day, when I finished writing the book, I'm like, I don't actually, at a certain point, I don't think there's anything to protect yourself from. At a certain point, when you're really taking care of yourself and you're clear on who you are and you're clear on your energy and your feelings, you're not a victim. There's no victims. No one's a victim to like anything coming in and latching on and getting into your energy field. And, when you're in your vibration and you love yourself and you're just like, you are feeling your best, there's nothing to protect yourself from, so that was a really great learning. Even energy vampires actually where I am on my path now. But speaking to people who are maybe a little bit earlier on, that language is maybe really supportive. I know it really helped me to feel like, okay, wow, there's a lot going on here. And, it's not that I'm a bad person. It's not that there's something wrong with me. There's like all these different energies going on. And I just get to learn how to really manage myself. I get to take responsibility for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I
that's a
love
big
that.
one. That's a big one to
Yeah.
take responsibility for your own space and what's happening in your life.
Yeah.
And I love how you said how if you take responsibility for your own space and you take care of yourself, that nothing on the external can influence you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love
Yeah.
that.
And I love how you're saying your process was really about self-love. I'm a big, big advocate of self-love. And I've never actually heard somebody explain how self-love can also help you create different boundaries with how
Yeah.
you interact with the world. Like I know that because I've experienced that in my life. But from an empathic standpoint, I've never actually considered it. So thank you. That was really helpful because, like, I guess I need to do some work there because I notice, like, when I go through certain, yeah, yeah, like I'll notice still when I go through certain environments, like I'll feel stuff, and I don't like it. It like comes in so fast sometimes, and I don't know what to do with it. And then I just like my automatic kind of reaction is like retreat, like go to a different space or, you know. But if I
Mm.
could learn to hold a better boundary in the moment,
Yeah. Ooh, I'm
then
so glad you're sharing that. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so that was really helpful for me. Thank you.
Uh,
I'm sure
yeah.
for other people too.
Well, I'm so happy to hear. Yeah, I mean, I also have a suggestion in that because I feel that so deeply what you're saying, that experience of like going to the grocery store or like
Oh,
going to a concert and just being like, what the hell is going on here? Like,
yeah.
it feels, it's like I just want to have my own experience and like a really easy, super practical tool to just get, come back to your own energy and to get more clear on like, what do I feel and what do I want? Is really to tap into desire, to tap into your desire, which is such a powerful, that's part of your intuitive superpower is listening to like your desires, which are, I believe, communicated by source, by divine inspiration, are your key to, really living in flow and in synchronicity and just following these, really powerful clues and keys that just plug you into the perfect time, the perfect place, and so how to tap into that in the moment if you're feeling overwhelmed or you're feeling kind of like something's coming in that you're not really wanting to engage with, is just to really, I even recommend like closing your eyes, just coming back to your own space, like deep breathing, maybe 3 like super, super deep breaths, coming back to your body, and then asking. So you're activating all of your own senses, right? You're bringing all of your own kind of senses and intuitive channels online just through that simple process of breathing, eyes closed, and asking yourself then in the mind, what do I desire right now? What do I need? How can I best feel supported? How can I support myself? Right? Asking yourself that question, whatever way resonates most powerfully for you, and letting your intuition express, what do you need to feel supported? Because I found that, and then listening, right? And doing whatever that says, like in the moment, like do not delay, do exactly what direction comes through. And I found that, with practicing that repetitively all the time, I have some clients like, I mean, maybe everybody could do this for fun. Set a timer on your phone for every half an hour and put the reminder. What do I desire right now? What do I need? How can I best support myself? Practice that. And eventually it becomes like a default mechanism to just live intuitively guided, and really cultivates self-trust, strengthens your boundaries, also heals any unworthiness that may be looming that catalyzes this, unconscious, oftentimes desire to serve other people, to feel important or to feel valuable. I mean, all that stuff. So it's so simple, but that practice like hits on so many different wounds and just like kind of makes so many unconscious patterns conscious, and really is like the best way you can take your power back, especially when you just, take the actions that you're directed to take, especially when they don't make sense to the mind. Because if you're also somebody, I'm noticing this challenge in a lot of people as they're awakening to their energetic sensitivity, that there's this challenge in really dropping out of the mind and into the heart and into the body, and to fully trust feelings as opposed to conditioning and thoughts and stories. And, so that's a really powerful way to engage with the mind and help to train your mind, which just wants to help you. It just wants to figure everything out. And it's just like this homework machine that wants to like have something to do all the time. And it's our job to give it the story and to give it the task, to give it the homework that's in service to our good feelings and our soul.
I love that. That's super helpful, because I know for me, when I'm in those situations, I can be very unconscious because I haven't trained myself to really like identify that this is just an empathic moment. And the reason why I'm feeling this way is because of the environment. It's usually after I remove myself, then I'm like, oh, I know what it was, versus being conscious of it in the moment. So I really like the suggestion of the timer on the phone. I'm a big fan of timers on the phone, but I've never thought about it to do it like that. So
yeah. And what I like about that too is that it's how you co-create with the universe ultimately by setting that intention for the next half hour or the next hour or whatever. Because I think majority of the society nowadays, they're very reactive. The world happens to them and then they feel something and then they make their decisions based on that. But if you do it the other way around, you take a step back and then you set that intention for the next half hour, whatever, then all of a sudden like a different energy begins to run your life.
Totally. I love that. That's beautiful. Yeah. I mean, through everything we're kind of talking about right now, we're talking about the distinction that I feel like collectively we're moving out of victim consciousness into creator consciousness, and into like full recognition and remembrance that we are creators and we are creating our stories. We're creating this world. I mean, this holographic universe, if you will, we are creating it. And it's so beautiful to own that responsibility that we have in our part, in creating this the way that we want it. There's no one is a victim, right? And that also changes like your whole paradigm of relationships when you really start to look at other people that way. Like no one is a victim, everyone is choosing, even if they're not fully aware of that. It's like, wow, that has just radically transformed so much of like my relationship and intimacy practice in my life for over the years, as I've really taken, and it starts with me, right? It always starts with you. It's like, be that mirror for how you want other people to appear in your life and how you want other people to show up, like really hold people to that standard by embodying it first.
That's a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah.
Well, that's the creator. That's it, though, right? We're
Yeah.
not victims to anybody else. Like nothing is happening to me. Everything is happening for me. How
Yeah.
is this painful, challenging situation actually such a gift to catalyze my transformation that my soul is wanting to experience, to be more in truth, to be more in alignment with my purpose, to be more authentic, to feel more safe and be who I really am. All these different things, and yeah, and it can be really challenging. It's intense, right? It's like I say the journey of alignment and really, seeking to be really like radically authentic in your expression takes courage. Takes a lot of courage to face the truth about yourself and really face your shadow of like what are the ways in which I'm really depending on people to validate me. That's like my biggest. It still comes up. It will always come up. I was talking to my partner about this last night. Like, I think this might always come up in different forms, that my shadow is like, parts of me still depend on outside validation to feel like I'm important and to feel like I'm meaningful and to feel like, I matter, like seeking that love. It's love. It's all love, just seeking love and wanting to be seen by other people to feel complete, and I say that to say like, and I also feel so whole and so integrated and so powerful and I love myself, but that it's a dance. Like that
Yeah.
stuff will come up and it's really, and it's deepening into more love. It's like we're not just like, oh, I'm healed, I'm complete, I'm a super empowered empath, my life is amazing. It's like, no, it's like this is what life is. Maybe forever we get opportunity love, more intimacy, more connection, more receptivity to divine inspiration. It's like it's a wild ride.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I love how you were talking about shadow, and it is truly like what you said, a deepening into more love. Like every time you see your shadow come up in yourself or in a reflection in somebody else, it really is a beautiful opportunity to move into more love. Not just self-love, but like compassion and love for everybody else too.
Always
Mhm.
more love, right? And it's like
Mhm.
love can be super simplified down. Like many teachers, I guess Marianne Williamson comes to mind. It's like we're either moving to love or fear. It's like really that easy, and it's just
Yeah.
that simple. It's like, am I in fear right now? And fear can take many different shapes, right? Depending on your kind of like fear, your fear of choice. Mine is like, what are people thinking about me? And that's I'm in any energy like that. I know I'm in fear, versus love. What is the expression of love in this moment? How can I be? Oh, such a great question that I like to remind myself of and just share as much as possible is like, on the same note of asking yourself, what do I desire? What do I need? What do I want? You can ask yourself as much as you can throughout the day, like, how can I be all of the love that I am? Right. So just witnessing
like
that
that.
truth, acknowledging that truth that you are love. That is your nature, is love. So how can you be all of that love? Like now, how does that express itself through you? And that can be really illuminating if you're really honest with yourself about ways in which you're not fully being in your full expression.
I love that.
Yeah,
love
we
that.
we watched that little video with Neil Donald Walsh earlier today, and he was talking about how we are really still on a journey of evolution. Like we are not the pinnacle of what our species is going to be in 50, 100, 5,000 years from now. We're only in our infancy right now. We're just leaving that. We're just entering maybe like teenagehood, maybe.
Yeah, we're in like major adolescent years.
Yeah, definitely. All the turmoil, things are shifting, things are kind of crazy, but it's just because we need to step into that next level of more love, more maturity.
I love that you said that. I'm just feeling it's like spiritual puberty. It's like
Totally.
so awkward. Like totally awkward, and everyone's like getting weird, like acne
And like awkward, like I don't know how to talk to the opposite sex. Like it's like that, like remember the high school dances? It's like, you're awkward, you don't know how to talk to everybody else, and
Big time.
super insecure.
I love that. That is so funny. That's so true.
Yeah, I think something that we just need to be conscious of as we go through this whole process is just love and kindness to ourselves, like that whole self love piece, because it's so easy to get stuck in the guilt. I wish I did this differently. I wish I did this differently, or I would have handled the situation in a different way.
Or even in the victimhood, bless you. Even in the victimhood, when people are still in the state of like, well, this person did this to me and that's why I'm like this, and my life sucks because of this particular event, or my ex cheated, or whatever the story is. It's about like stepping out of that, and like you said, taking that responsibility for your space, your own space.
Yeah. And just not blaming yourself, not blaming others, just being kind.
Yeah, that's a good one too. Another distinction that comes up as you mention all that is like, because I feel like so much of my path has been like rigorous reprogramming and like major mindset work and just like meditation and I mean everything. And something I've really become aware of, especially over this past year, is like on that note of like being radically responsible for yourself and being like this leader of your own life and creator consciousness. It's like, actually, like it's a balance, right? Like not every single thing is like my responsibility. Because I just noticed like certain times there have been moments where something's been triggering for me, or it's been painful, or there's been a lesson in a relationship, and it's like, what am I like? Okay, what did I do to like create this? Like, what am I doing to set this trigger off? Or like, what am I doing to like, how am I responsible? And there's just something to watch out there, because like there have been times where I've even had like a friend or partner reflect to me, like, you didn't do anything, like you didn't create that actually. Like that's actually just happening because, maybe there's not always a reason actually, that sometimes things are happening that I'm not, that the trigger is coming up, but it's not because it's triggering. It's not because it's mirroring something inside of me that's wanting to be healed, So I just say that to say that it's not so black or white, as much as I'm like, yes, we're all creators and we can take responsibility for ourselves, but to be careful in going too far down the scale on any one side, that, sometimes it can end up being this. I've experienced this kind of like self-deprecating energy of like, a martyr, almost like a martyring energy of like, where did I create this? Or like, what did I do wrong? Like this even happened to me, to make it super like, it happened to me really recently. I was really in this feeling of like, what am I doing wrong? Because I was feeling like old emotions coming up. I was just feeling kind of bad, and I was feeling awkward because I was like, why do I feel uncomfortable right now? Like, what is this old feeling coming up? It feels really old. And I didn't know how to fully intellectualize or express it. And part of my training was like, well, how am I doing something wrong to create this? What am I doing? And really what wanted to be expressed was just like sadness. What really just wanted to be felt was like, it wasn't an intellectualized answer. It was just like, I'm feeling really sad, and this feeling's wanting to come up because I'm wanting to feel more love and connection. But there's this part of me running this old program, which I connected to later being like an inner child kind of wound, and you didn't even need to know the full story. It was like, okay, where can I just love myself? Like, it's okay to be sad right now. And it's okay to feel this like feeling of not being understood by someone that I love, and not being able to communicate clearly in this moment what it is that I really need. Like it's okay.
I think something that we've done as a society over the last, let's say, 15, 20 years is that we've all heard this idea how we're all supposed to be super positive all the time. That,
oh God.
You have to be positive, positive affirmations, like, oh, don't do that. Don't go down that rabbit hole. You got to stay positive. And the problem with that is that people numb themselves, because as soon as something enters their energy field or their emotional body, whatever, all of a sudden they don't want to feel it. They feel guilty about it, and they don't allow themselves to process that emotion. But the only way for it to actually come out and be healed and just run through you is through totally embracing that emotion, whatever it is at the moment, without judgment.
Yeah, it's like we have judgments against certain emotions versus
Big
others.
time.
Like being happy and joyful, cheerful, kind, graceful. That's all good.
That's cool.
But don't be angry. Don't be negative. Don't show that in public. Don't show that on Facebook or Instagram.
No one wants to see that.
And everybody wants to see that actually, because that's
Totally.
like where we really connect is like, oh my
Yeah.
God, I'm not alone. Because in this culture that's conditioned us to be like, you have to look this way and you have to be perfect. And literally feeling bad feelings. And there's like, as you said, this judgment of like certain feelings are bad.
Hmm.
Something that was so revolutionary for me to learn on my path is like, feelings are neutral information. They're just like data.
Totally.
They're just like happening. They're not good. Bad. They just are. And
Yeah.
how like, oh my God, what a relief. Like
Yeah.
there's just a feeling happening and it's just energy wanting to come out through my body. It doesn't even necessarily need a story. It
Yeah.
just wants to be acknowledged and felt and heard, and any sense of like dissonance or pain isn't actually a natural state of being in my being. Like it wants to move, wants to get out. And
Hmm.
yeah, I'm so grateful for that like revelation. Like, oh my God, there's nothing. I used
Yeah.
to think my feelings were going to kill me because I feel so
Yeah.
intensely. I was like so afraid of going into pain, of going into like judgment, of going into like my fears and being really radically honest about what some of those things were. And I really used to have this feeling of like it is going to kill me to fully feel this. Like my body's going to explode or like I can't handle
Mm.
it. And yeah, and that's why it was so great. Like I haven't done any of this the work alone. I've
Yeah.
always healed in community and with coaches and advisors and mentors and and at the end of the day, like we're all our own like best guide. At a certain point, it's like you're the one that knows if you're really telling the truth.
Hmm.
Hmm. Hmm.
Really, how willing are you to face yourself? But for all of this work, especially shadow work and really doing a lot of the yeah, like just doing this excavation, like clearing it out, just it is so important to feel like you are, held and like you can be in a safe space to feel supported and moving through whatever you need to move through, whether that's in relationship or, I should share like I say this a little bit in my book, like the first 5 years of my journey, I was like in 12-step recovery, and I was really, and while I no longer identify with that path per se now, because my evolution has taken me kind of on a different path, that was a really essential part of what I now identify as like having made quantum leaps in healing and transformation and growth. I had a community that I was showing up for almost every single day that required like a deep level of authenticity, honesty, and service, like being really involved in supporting other people, right? Seeing these mirrors of transformation around me all the time. And I like inundated myself in that really rigorously for 5 years, and that feels like it's like I don't give myself enough credit or acknowledgement for that being part of my path because I'm just so present to this question of like willingness, right? And like, how do you, everyone wants to transform or like heal and feel better, but it's like, where do you cultivate that willingness, life or
I
death, to
love
really
that.
grow and do the work that does catalyze healing? And I'm just so present to the fact that that willingness that I had, is such a miracle because not everybody has that, and sometimes it has to
Hmm.
be catalyzed by a lot of pain, right? Like pain is the ultimate motivator of spiritual growth. But I'm always in question, like, does it have to be? Does
No,
it
I
have to
don't
be
think
Yeah.
so
so.
bad
Yeah.
before it gets better?
Yeah, no, you're bang on though. Like I think yeah, it doesn't have to be, but I agree with you on the whole willingness. It's like are you willing to actually genuinely do the work?
Mhm.
Find that community, find that support, find the teachers to help you. Cuz a lot of people they don't want to do that because it requires change. Maybe there could be drastic change. Like you underwent like major change in your life. So, yeah, you do have to have that willingness.
Yeah, I'm always in like question about that because like
Mhm.
I find this in my coaching practice. It's like people really resonate with me around like, that I have had these like quantum leaps in transformation and that I continue to, not always motivated by pain, like
Mhm.
maybe I create something I really love is what I notice in my path, especially over the last 2 years, is like, without creating pain, to motivate me into quantum leaps and transformation and growth and like prosperity and all this goodness. It's like I've noticed a really fun way to catalyze this like willingness to do like drastic upheaval of shadow and just old energy and all this stuff. It's been to like invest in myself. Like
Mm-hmm.
I have really healed so much of my like scarcity consciousness and inherently in that unworthiness and unwillingness to be fully authentic and seen, right? I've healed so much of that by like investing in myself at like wild levels and just like creating this fire, like lighting the fire to like
Mm-hmm.
be all in, on like being all in on my desires. And I'd love to
Yeah.
invite people into that space because, money is such an amazing tool with which we can really like dive into our shadow, dive into like our unworthiness, scarcity, whatever is blocking us off from being fully in creator consciousness, abundance, love, like living the life that we desire. So I found that as like a fun workaround. Like you don't have to get to the point where you're like,
Yeah.
dying in the physical realm, but part of you, there's a distinction too, like, and part of what I think our society conditions us to be really comfortable with is like a low level of suffering or like a low
Mm-hmm.
level
Oh,
of like
big
part
time.
of us is maybe dying, but like that's
Yeah.
okay.
But we're
It's
okay
just,
with it.
yeah. And it's
Yeah.
like, no, I don't really want to live in a world where people are,
No.
settling.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot too. The whole like transforming through joy versus transforming through suffering. Like you can really choose to do both.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day,
absolutely.
which one do you prefer?
It is a choice.
Yeah, it is. Like I've transformed through suffering and I really prefer joy.
It's
like
much better.
been there, done that. And yeah, transforming through joy is so much better. Like I had this one teacher and he was like, you could have your life get better and better. And then some people, they think, oh, something bad has to happen because everything's going really good. And so I better watch out. Something's bad is going to happen. Or you can just keep allowing your life to get better and better and better and better and better.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I
Beautiful.
like that.
Yeah, the thing that comes up as you say that is also something that's been really helpful for me in terms of like what we're talking about, I think, is like navigating this like duality that everything's like all good all the time or just all bad and horrible all the time. It's like learning to live in the gray. Like I remember the first time that it was again like early on in my sobriety, and I was like, I remember talking to a person that really supported me a lot during that time and saying like, oh my God, I'm having this feeling and it feels like I was scared. I was having a new feeling and I was describing it to her and I'm like, well, it just feels like nothing is wrong. Like I'm serious, you guys. I was scared. I just had lived so much of my life on like high alert and like I need to figure things out to feel like I'm okay. And I was like, I just feel like nothing's wrong and like nothing's happening.
Weird.
And she's like, I think you're feeling like serenity and peace.
Oh, that's
I
what that
love
is.
it. That's cool.
Great, though, right? Like
Yeah.
it's not like even a heightened, elated state of joy, which can also be a high or an attachment to feeling like, oh my God, amazing.
Mhm.
Or like, oh my God, the depths of darkness. It was just kind of like being present in the moment and feeling kind of like detachment was like a new experience, right? And so it's like this living in the gray. And I would also say like, yes, allowing your life to get better and better and knowing that you're on this growth trajectory and that, yes, like everything is happening for you in your highest good, but that within that, there's also cycles of contraction and expansion, which are not meant to be feared, right? Which is like also a dance, like, oh, I'm in an expansive state. I'm like receiving, I'm creating, I'm like, wow, I'm really like visible. And then there's natural contraction to follow that, right? And there's like a time of, maybe more hibernation, more introspection, more like just like our planet follows seasons. It's like our bodies, our consciousness, we're following our own seasons. So I feel like that's really important to mention in this conversation because people can get really afraid of like, oh my God, that this like high is not lasting and the joy and the ecstasy, it's like not as much as it was. Oh my God, what's wrong? And there's nothing wrong. It's just a natural, like life is a wave, right? And so to really be conscious of that and how that wave looks and feels for you.
I love that.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
Like I've certainly experienced like the highs and lows in my life, and I much prefer the subtle piece that's just kind of easy keel. Yeah, there's still emotions of joy and happiness and all these things, but it's not this addictive roller coaster because before it was like these like insane highs where I was just elated and super excited and life was amazing, and then the next day I would crash and it would just be all going to shit and it'd be terrible.
Yeah,
I
totally.
don't want either at this point. Like, I just want to be nice and calm, just take it easy,
I
you know?
find it's like an attachment piece. It's like, am I attached to this, like taking on that emotion as me versus it's an experience. So if
Yep.
I'm like really joyful and in my state, which I know that I am love and I am joy, but I might be experiencing something that is, unhappy or sad or emotional of some sort, but it's just like witnessing it from this place of detachment of like, this is
Yeah.
just an experience that I'm going through, but it's not something that's permanent. It's not something that defines me. It's just, I've just shifting like perspective in that sense.
Yeah,
I
there is a
found is really,
detachment with it for sure.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's the only constant. They're just
Yeah.
gonna keep on flowing. Yeah, and I mean, as I'm sure I can tell that you guys are practice meditation just from like the way that you're talking about this stuff, and it's like that has been one of the most critical tools of all, like this
Yeah,
whole
me
Mm-hmm.
journey.
too.
And when I first started meditating, I'm like, this is horrible. Like, I don't like myself. All my stuff was coming up, and my mind was like, "Arr," like crazy, activated, and it's like, and if anyone listening like feels that way and you maybe tried to meditate and you're like that didn't work, it's like it's always working no matter
Yeah.
what happens. It's always working. You're getting exactly what you need, and keep practice.
Yeah.
I can't even tell you like what the feeling is like to have this experience come online of like what you just alluded to, which is like this feeling of, oh my God, I am not like anything that's happening to me or happening around me. Like that's not me.
Mm-hmm.
And that this voice that I thought was me is like my mind or something else. It's like, and then you get to get in touch with the soul. Like there's this other part of you that's observing
Mm-hmm.
everything that's going on, your consciousness, right? And you really, I mean, from that space, oh my God, you guys, I just remember when I first heard like the other voice, like I'm like, there's another thing in me. Like what? Like it's not this horrible, mean energy that's been putting me down my whole life. Like that's not who I am, And one of my favorite books that talks about this exact phenomenon is The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer, which is like, if you haven't read that book, get that book immediately, and also read his other book, The Surrender Experiment, which is like so good. And it's 11:11, just by the way.
Oh.
When I'm in
Oh,
Of course it is.
amazing.
glanced over at the clock, and I'm like, oh yeah, of course.
Of course it is.
I love it. I love it. Our clock here says 2012, and I'm like a huge fan of twos and ones.
Yes, wow.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So I know we're getting close to an hour, and so I think you have to take off soon. But I really wanted to touch on the Akashic Records.
Cool.
Can we touch on it really fast, really
Yeah, I'd
quickly?
love to. Yeah, absolutely. What do you want to know?
Well, can you explain what they are?
Yeah.
Like,
so
there's
happy to
Akashic
share.
record readings, right? And then like, what is that?
Yeah. So, oh man,
Do we have
So
enough
cool.
time?
totally. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm so happy to share with you. I feel like this is another thing that's kind of coming more into like popular awareness, which I'm
Mhm.
really happy to see. The Akashic Records, I would say, is this like it's kind of a personification of what I really feel is like just this higher frequency source of information, right? Just like when we're meditating, we're tapping into soul consciousness. That's like another frequency, right? When we're, that's like an example I would relate this to. And so the Akashic Records are like, they're talked a lot about as being like a library of all the
Yeah.
souls in the universe, right? Like it's literally this like library that's accessible through, praying, through meditating, through setting the intention to connect with this higher frequency source of information. I also feel like when I'm tapping into that information, I'm tapping into it's just all source consciousness. Like I'm just tapping into truth, tapping into unconditional love. And when I'm doing a reading with somebody or even on myself, I'm setting the intention to engage with this frequency of the Akashic Records, all the souls of the universe, source consciousness, to support me in illuminating more truth about any questions that I have that are really aimed at supporting me in living my highest alignment of my mission on this planet and my soul embodiment, feeling and just being my best. And I love this work so much. I found out about it it's funny to say I found out about it lifetimes ago, but I literally, I was, in my job like 4 years ago or so in New York, and I was looking at the newsletter for a healing center that I was seeing Reiki clients at the time, and kind of on the side of my advertising job, and saw this training that was Akashic Records certified. And I just, when you read something and you have this like unexplainable recognition with it, it's just
For
this
sure.
familiarity. Like, I've done that
Mhm.
before. Like, what is that? But I had never
Mhm.
heard of it before in this life. And I just went. I was like, I'm going, and I went and I did the training, and it was like this, a lot of meditation practice, a lot of like, receiving different energetic attunements to help, help me receive that frequency more clearly.
Mhm.
And although we can all access the Akashic records, we can all access our own Akashic records, we can all do this through meditation, through practice. But I will say that I had one of the most transformative times of my life in that training, because I felt at such, and this has happened to me many times over my life, but this is a really pivotal moment in which I felt like, wow, this is why I'm here. Like, I'm here on the planet to give this gift. I'm here on the planet to be this seer, this person. Like, I have a gift. I have a gift to access this energy. I have a gift to interpret this energy, that I'm a channel. And I just saw myself. I saw so many of my other lifetimes in which I had been that channel, that messenger, that healer. And it really was so healing, for this part of me that felt like I somehow couldn't be that, or I was never going to be able to be that, or like, what am I really here for? It was just so clearly answered. It was like, wow, and so I received, how does that all work? Like, again, we all experience intuition differently. We all express our intuition differently. For me, I experienced, tuning into this energy through feeling, and I really feel information. Like, how it works when I'm doing a reading is I say an invocation, I connect to my client's energy, and I start to, and everybody's so different too. It's so amazing. Like, I'll receive information at a different speed depending
Mm.
on who I'm connecting with. And it will come through differently. Like, I'll notice a difference in the way I interpret, messages, depending on what that soul is most needing to receive, which is really beautiful. And I will receive the information, I would say, through a feeling kind of sensation that then somehow triggers like this. It's kind of unexplainable. It's hard to explain with words, but it's like, I'll usually have my eyes closed and I'll feel. It's beyond like clearing with. It's beyond hearing with like a clear audio or a clear visual. It's like I
Mhm.
feel information in a way that I know it's not coming from me, because I don't. It's like my mind is not involved in creating this. It's like a feeling, and then somehow I can interpret, this almost like whisper into words, and then I can just get into a channeling state where I'm just letting things kind of come. And it's really cool. I feel like it's always a new experience depending on who I'm sharing with, to see, like, it does feel like sometimes I'm seeing things. Sometimes there is a vision.
Mhm.
Um, it's a very humbling experience, I would say too, because it is constantly asking me to, put my ego aside and to always be in service to whatever this other soul is allowing me to share. And yeah, and it's just, I'm so in awe of how dynamic and unique every single one of us is. Like, it's just so, we are so multifaceted, and we're so powerful, and I feel like we've all lived so many different lifetimes, and we have so many different experiences and gifts, and like, just so
Mhm.
much. There's just so much infinitely powerful like insight available within us, so it's one of my favorite things to do. It feels so good.
That's cool. I
So
like that.
let me ask you
Sorry.
a question. So the Akashic Records are like a library or where information is stored based on your past lives, or
Future
Yeah,
lives?
I would explain it. Yeah. So this is the other fun part. So we really get into like the quantum field, right? Beyond time, beyond space, beyond like a linear agreed to believe in here on Earth. However, time and space are illusions, right? Like, we're kind of all just agreeing that, this is a computer screen, and I'm in Los Angeles and you're in Spain, but
totally?
somehow we're
Mhm.
connecting in this present moment through time, even though it's 11:18.
Mhm.
So, that's fun. And the Akashic Records, it's like information is it's just there. It's like the continuum of all happenings that have ever happened through past, present, and future. So, it's always like communicated, like whatever the person is most needing to hear can come in as like a future timeline, can come in as a present moment timeline, or past lives, infinite lifetimes that our souls have experienced, not only on Earth, but in other, galaxies and other star systems, other dimensions even. And in that space also is like, for certain people, ancestors will come in the reading, or past life guides, spirit guides, or, memories of people in this lifetime that have maybe since passed, or very like, this happened the other day. It was like somebody coming in. I'm like, Michelle, who was that? And it's just somebody who figures really prominently in this person's path as it pertains to relationships. He had this woman, Michelle, who always introduces him to like his new girlfriend, like many times. So it's just things like that can happen. And yeah, it's beautiful to get out of our, to be in a space that's like devoid of a linear intellectual kind of construct, and is really, it's an energy transmission. Like the people that are in the space with me, and I'll feel, it's energy. It's all energy being communicated. And it's even like beyond the words and the interpretation. It's like I'm aware of people experiencing different energy, movement, and sensation in their body just by simply being in this agreement to be in this container to receive. So there's just so much going on that we're not even aware of, and so many beings helping us all the time that we don't even see or we don't even know. And I'm so sensitive to like conditioning and the way that I'm multidimensionality and galactic consciousness and all these things. It's like, to what extent is that just, it's all stories, right? It's all stories that we've decided to agree upon to like make sense of this human experience in the third, fourth, fifth dimension. And there's just so much. Again, it's like the more that I know, the less I know. Like I really
totally.
like infinite.
So what is the difference between a past life reading or versus an Akashic record reading?
Oh, cool. I'm not sure there's a difference.
I was just gonna say.
Yeah, this is a conversation I'm really open to having too, especially with more people that work in specifically Akashic Records. So I really feel, I was actually asking a mentor of mine the same question, because I'm just like, to what extent, like I'm so like kind of sensitive to this notion of like, I have my Reiki certification, and I have my health coaching certification, and I have my Akashic Records certification. So I do these things, right? You understand that like I do these things, and I'm a coach, and I'm an author, and I did this, I made this book. But like, to what extent is all of that, those titles and categorizations and compartmentalizations, really limiting of my full expression of just being this channel for source consciousness to move through in all these different ways? And to what extent is like me saying I'm channeling the Akashic Records really limiting the fact that I'm just channeling my unique connection to source that happens to be expressed through this, really powerful gift that I have, which is tapping into all my intuition, all of my life experience, all of my soul experience, having been a guide. And, sure, I'm tapping into the Akashic Records, but I'm tapping into someone's soul. I'm tapping into their guides. I'm tapping into their multidimensional blueprint. I mean, so I kind of played around with that. I'm like, how do I communicate with more integrity what it is that is happening? Is that the truest expression of like what is really occurring, right? And and it's challenging. It's like being the bridge between the fifth dimension and the third dimension. Like in the third dimension, I call myself a life coach because people understand what that means, even if there's like all of these other things going on.
For sure.
It's challenging. I don't know if I have an answer for you, because it's like, I feel like so much is going on, and that I'm just so aware that whatever someone is really needing, as long as I'm an open channel for being that conduit, like they receive that. And it is a past life reading. It's a soul reading. It's an energy healing. It's,
you're drawing on like all of your tools and all of your gifts, and it's not, and all of that can't be like, we don't have a word for that in this human language, right?
We don't have a word. And I also say that to like give permission to people who may be in this feeling again of like a victim consciousness, or a feeling of like, oh man, I see this so often. Like, am I really allowed to share my gifts? Am I qualified? Like, am I qualified? This whole notion of like, being qualified, right? Like, what does that mean? Like, how do we how do we determine qualification? And to what extent is our agreed upon system of qualification
Mm-hmm.
real? Because I know people that have PhDs and have been doing coaching for like a million years and are like, and it's like, are they people like, are those people the best? Are they the best for me? Are those people going to help me in the way that I need? Versus like, I have relationships in my life with people that aren't even coaches or, qualified in any of the ways that we would think, or like a healer is qualified. And they're like the most expert space holders that I've ever come across in my life. And these people are like, supporting people in deep healing in such powerful ways, and they're not getting any acknowledgement for it. And they're not even saying that this is what I do. They just are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point. I really love that you said that, because I think the constructs of our society, really, like these letters after a name or whatever, I think in a lot of ways they could be potentially limiting. If somebody is saying something that resonates with you, take it. If it means something to you, take it. If it doesn't, throw it out. Who cares?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, if you are getting something out of the interaction, then take notice.
Yes.
But otherwise, because I think that a lot of the constructs of our society, they're serving an old consciousness. And a lot of that is now shifting. It's changing. It no longer supports this new direction that we're heading in some regards. Not everything, because there's no absolute truth here. I think everything is really just in flux and change, and including the Akashic Record, just based on some of the understanding that I have. From what I understand is that you can change everything. You can change your past lives. You can change all of it. And including like this existence now, eventually it'll be in the past. But even this existence will be different in the future.
Yeah, it's so powerful. I mean, the quantum, we could call it quantum healing or past whatever. Like I mean, I do this in my inner child healing is exactly what you're talking about. And that's been one of the most powerful, like I would say, modalities. I mean, I call it inner child healing or soul retrieval, full soul integration embodiment. It's like, I'm so passionate about that work because that's exactly what we're doing. We're going back and healing not only past lives, even if we're not consciously thinking like this is a past life. It's like we're healing the past parts of ourselves that were, where we receive conditioning or, incurred stories or imprints that are not really in alignment with the life that we want to live now, present moment life. And just, there's so much power in that awareness. Like, yeah, I'm the creator of my present reality. And, what are these issues, if any, or conditionings or stories that aren't really in service to me, and how can I change them? Like, what would be a better story? What would feel better, and really, yeah, I mean, I've just witnessed people undergo like such massive, and myself included, massive transformation in even like a 30-minute guided, meditation where you're meeting your inner child and you're reconnecting with this soul part of yourself and starting to like develop that loving, caring relationship with, this part of you that maybe has always felt abandoned, that's maybe always then catalyzed, like in my case, has always ignited this desire for external validation to feel like I met. Actually have a retreat coming up in LA at the end of April that I'm going to be taking a group of 8 people through this curriculum that I've developed that's over. I mean, wow, it's almost funny to say that after what I just said, like this curriculum that I developed.
It's great.
All of these teachings. It's all of these teachings that I've received through all of my own transformation, all my own healing. And wow, I'm so inspired to share this with as many people as possible. The inner child component has a little section in my book, but I mean, that could be like a whole other book.
Yeah, it's a game changer.
It's
an
really
absolute
important
game
piece,
changer.
for sure.
Wow, we could just talk forever and ever. This has been so fun.
We need another 4 hours.
Yeah.
We need to have you on again.
That's true. You guys are amazing. It's been so great. I love connecting with, I just love connecting with you. And I feel like how open you are to like we're tuning into a similar frequency. And that feels really exciting for me because it's like we're both just like playing off each other's inspiration, and
Yeah.
and it can just go on forever. I mean, that's when we're in flow. It's like we're totally in flow.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, this is definitely the favorite thing that we do, is just connecting with like-minded people and just having these conversations, because I just feel that they're so important, and I get so much out of them.
Yeah, totally.
Big time.
Yeah, I used to be so scared to talk about this stuff, and now it's like, oh, we've got a podcast, and we're going to talk about it and share with the world. So
awesome.
I love
I'm
it.
excited to go even deeper into in our next episode.
Yeah. We'll get really
So
weird then.
Big time.
We'll talk about a bunch of
We'll
woo
talk
stuff.
about- maybe we'll talk about sex.
Yeah.
I like it.
That's one of my favorite things to talk about, because it's like, and this came up yesterday for me and my partner, was like how, and I just always say this, like how you show up for sex is how you're showing up in life, like in all areas of your life. And when we're talking about consciousness evolution, healing, energy discernment, it's like that's where like a lot of our shadow stuff is like wanting to be illuminated, is like in our own sexuality, our expression of power, our expression of love. And yeah, I would love to have that. That's just a little idea. Maybe we can dial in.
I love that.
Yeah,
That's an
sounds
awesome
good.
idea. For sure. We'll definitely have you on again, because this is fun.
Yeah. And so if any of our listeners want to get in touch with you, what is the best way for them to do that?
You can check out my website, sydneycampos.com. And on there, you'll also see a link to my book website, which is the-empath-experience.com. And as I mentioned, I have a great retreat coming up at the end of April in Los Angeles. That's all about inner child. It's called Remember Who You Are. And there's 2 spaces left. And then I also have a Visionary Souls podcast, which you can tune into, where I interview amazing people similarly, and really delve into, I like to delve into the shadow with people. I love to talk to amazing people and right away ask them, like, what are you most afraid of? And what are you most afraid of anybody knowing about you? And really having conversations like that just that just like crush through our notions of separation and perfection. And
I love it.
Yeah, so fun. I love it. So yeah, just connect with me at sydneycampos.com. Sign up for my newsletter. I'm going to be announcing some of my book tour visits, and always have great videos, and I'm on YouTube and all that good stuff too.
Awesome. Well, we'll put all the links below in the show notes for people, so they can easily reach out to you. So thank you so much for taking the time and joining us today. It's been so wonderful.
Super fun.
Yeah.
Thank you for the invitation, and thank you for the space that you create. Thank you for the conversations that you're holding space for. It's so important. Really appreciate you.
Aw,
likewise.
thank you.
Likewise, Sydney. Thank you so much. And for our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. And please, if you haven't done so already, make sure to subscribe. Hit that button. It really helps us out.
And share with your friends.
Big time.
Yeah.
You gotta share with them.
Spread the love.
That's it.
So that's it. Till next time, people.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Spirit Ninjas Spiritual as Fuck podcast. Make sure to tune in next time for more deep conversations to uplift, inspire, and blow your mind. Spiritual as fuck.